Welcome to the 15 Minutes with a Farmer podcast from Successful Farming. I'm your host, Lisa Foust Prater. My guest today is Mike Koehne, a first-generation corn, soybean, and specialty crop grower from Greensburg, Indiana. He shares the challenges of breaking into farming without a family legacy, the joys of bringing his son into the operation, and the importance of representing agriculture on industry boards. In each episode, I have a quick 15-minute conversation with a farmer to hear their story and share their experience, expertise, and life lessons. Mike, thank you so much for joining me on 15 Minutes with a Farmer.
Well, I'm honored to be here.
Well, why don't you tell us, for starters, a little bit about your background and your operation?
So I'm a first generation farmer. My dad never farmed, and I started from scratch in 1992. And presently, we're farming 900 acres. We got a farm drainage business. Been doing that for 20 years, and everything we grow has a premium, or it's a specialty crop that we grow.
Why farming as a first gen farmer? I'm curious as to what led you to agriculture.
So when I was growing up, I helped neighbors farm, bale hay, bale straw, and do things like that. And then when I got into high school, I got into FFA and made some good friends, started helping them a little bit on their farms, took and co-opted out of the high school on their co-op program for some guys, and really I just fell in love with it. So I had the opportunity to get started, and so I jumped on it.
Oh, that's amazing. Having involvement in FFA like that, I think is so key. Obviously the farm kids are drawn to it and they're showing at the fair and doing all those kinds of things. But I think it might be even more important for the kids who don't come from a family farm, but who have an interest in agriculture, because it really, having a good advisor and having that sort of support, it really helps you figure out what you want to do.
Yeah, it's very educational in the program, the judging contest that they have. I mean, I learned a lot. It was very beneficial, I think, and even if you don't farm, just to learn about what goes on and what's behind it and how the process is. I mean, I think it's educational for everybody.
Yeah, absolutely. I know in a lot of small town schools, it seems like pretty much everybody's in FFA. So what was your when you were in high school? Were you in a big school, small school?
I was in class of 138 kids.
Yeah, medium.
It wasn't a big high school, but I mean, it wasn't a small one either.
Well, I love it that you were able to find that sort of interest and work with FFA. It feels like, there are so many skills that they teach beyond agriculture. Just even public speaking, and there's so much there. I love it.
There's so many avenues into the agricultural industry. I mean, when I graduated, I went to technical school for auto diesel mechanics. Well, I worked at an implement dealer for a while, and we still do all our own maintenance. We do all our own work. Very seldom take anything out, and do all our mechanic work right there in the shop. And I mean, that's really beneficial, and that's helped me.
Yeah, that's amazing, because having a good mechanic on your team is so key and so important, because when those machines stop running, you're doing nothing until they're back online. So that's great that you have that skill set to do that. That's huge. So what kind of challenges did you face as a first gen farmer? I know it can be really, really hard to get started when you're not joining a family operation.
Yeah, so it's, I rented that first farm. I didn't own a piece of equipment. So I had to go out and find everything, find the revenue the money basically to get started.
It's expensive.
And I was glad that I had the off-farm job to get started. That sure helped. In every aspect as I was going, it was just a learning curve, because I was basically teaching myself.
Right.
And learned a lot of things the hard way. Say, well, no, not to do that again.
Yeah.
But no, it's been a challenge. Just getting people, when you went out and started renting ground, just starting out, giving somebody to give you that opportunity.
Yes.
So
did you find a mentor in that process, a local farmer that you could go to for advice and tips?
Oh yeah, I still talk with all these guys. The guys I co-opted out of high school with, I still talk with them. I got another real good friend of mine that he's super smart. I mean, you just see his crops and I go, I want to be like that. And I've learned so much. And and some things, he told me it didn't work
Yeah.
because I didn't have the money for the right equipment or
Right.
something, so I had to tweak it here or there. But yeah, I talked to, I mean, like now, being on the Indiana Soybean Alliance board, I talk to all the farmers that are on the board, and you learn so much just talking to them guys
Right.
on their practices and what works on their farms.
That's amazing. Having a good mentor like that, or even just a neighbor that you can call on when you're stuck, with what to do is so key, especially when you didn't come from that background. So that's awesome. And, you mentioned, working with the board, and that is such a great experience. And, you don't necessarily think of first gen farmers. It feels like you have enough going on, you're learning all the time. But to take the time and put the energy into serving on a board like that. How did you decide to do that?
Well, actually, I had a farmer that I knew, and he invited me to one of their events one time, and I was just seeing all the good things they were doing, and I was like, wow, that, agriculture through the years have been good to me, and I thought, I need to pay this back somewhere.
Yeah.
So I thought it was a good opportunity to jump in, and this is my last year on the soybean board. I've been on it for 9 years.
That's amazing.
But we moved on, and I'm on the American Soybean Board now, and I'm on the USEC board. So it's been a good journey, but you can learn so much, and so much it goes on behind the scenes that you don't realize as a regular farmer. You take your crop to the elevator, and that's it. I mean, like with the specialty crops I grow, I mean, I've followed them all the way around the world already.
Yeah.
So, I mean, we sell containers of beans to Japan, and I've been around and seen and met people over there that buy my beans, and so it's been a great experience.
Yeah. That's amazing. So talk to me a little bit more about that, about, traveling and going, to other countries and seeing your products sort of in action, and meeting those folks who are using your products. What's that like?
So when we go on these trade missions that we go on, and we go over there and learn about the end users, we learn about what they want, what they're expecting, and we bring that all back, and it makes us make better decisions as a board when we report back, and we get to see what's going on over there.
Yeah.
We get to see their challenges. And if you hear directly from the buyer on the products that they want and what they want out of that product, we can be better as farmers to grow those products to meet those demands.
Yeah. Yeah, that's so important. And, it's interesting when you think about, representing on those boards also like farmers who are first gen, and, like they can learn from you, like you can learn from them, because it feels like sometimes when it's something that your family's done for generations, you just kind of don't even think about what you're doing. You do what your dad did, or you learn, you grow, but it's just a totally different perspective when you're starting from scratch. And I think that's really an important thing to represent on boards like that.
Yeah, I mean, you got to be conscious of everything you do. I mean, everybody does. I mean, especially in the markets nowadays.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, we all got to be cautious of what we do, but, we don't run any fancy equipment. We've added technology to our old stuff instead of buying new,
right?
Which,
Smart.
helps. And then we get to talk with other farmers to say, hey, what do you think on your corn planter? What was the best thing you ever done to put on it? Whether it's, GPS, variable rate, row shutoffs, whatever it was, that you get to learn what they think is beneficial for them. And then you can bring that back and try to apply that to your own stuff.
And I think farmers and ranchers too are when they're talking to someone who's genuinely interested in improving their operation or learning more, asking good questions, they're very willing to share that. It doesn't feel like it's necessarily so competitive. Like they just want to help out, when someone has a genuine interest.
Yeah, they take and they I like to tell my story. I think it's a unique story. With all the specialty stuff I grow, I like to promote that.
Right.
The specialty, the Clear Highland food grade beans that we grow, I just feel like I want to make a difference in the world.
Yeah.
And if I can grow these beans and I can ship these to someone and they can get the protein they need that can improve their life, that I think I feel like I've done something.
Yeah, absolutely. So what made you decide to go that route of rather than just the traditional, corn and soybean rotation, to look at some specialty crops? How did you come to that?
Well, kind of been doing it ever since I was started. I've been doing it. So it's just second nature for us. But with the added value that comes with that crop, that we can put that back into the farm. I feel like you know with us not being a generational farm, that it helps with our income that we get back to us. So.
Right. Yeah. And that's so smart because, just diversifying even a little bit, not having all your eggs in one basket, I think is really important. And you can do that in a way where you're not completely straying away. You're still growing beans, but you're doing things in a little bit different way. So when you were in Japan, I'm curious because I've talked to some other farmers who have been to Japan and they were very surprised at just how things were in that country as far as like what farms look like, what the plants look like. And it just seems like that, I don't know, that's so interesting to me. So tell me about that particular experience and what you were maybe most surprised by.
They were all real nice. They all treated you very well. Places we went, you just never know going to some of these countries what it's going to be like over there. So you don't know you kind of know what to expect, but you don't. But the places we went, they were very clean. They were, everything was efficient. There's a lot of technology they use. So that was, sometimes that is surprising when you go to some of them places. You don't think about some of that, but then I've been to 13 different countries. So anyway, it's in each country's a little different. So that's a good experience just to go and learn the culture too.
And I think it's so important for trade and for just relations in general to let them meet you. And it's not just your container of beans going over there, but you're going and they're meeting you and putting a good face on American ag. I think is just so important.
Showing up makes a difference when you go over there and you make these relationships. Like I was in South Korea 3 times now, and I got to know some of them people. And when they were over here for a conference and I was at that conference, they came up to me and started chatting and everything. And it's, just building those relationships is very important.
Yeah, absolutely. So, that's so key. And it's important for you, but it's important for all of us.
All of us, yes.
And everyone from, growers to the whole industry, having those relationships and building those connections is so key. So I love it that you're doing that. So tell me what's next for you. What's on the horizon? What kind of things are you looking for on your farm?
Well, we're always trying to be more innovative. My son's home working with me now. We're trying to get him into that transition mode as I get older, that we can make that transition. So that's always a learning curve, and just working with him on a different level. You got to be boss, but you're also dad. So
that can be hard.
It is. It gets tricky. So, but we're always looking to upgrade when we can, and if we, I don't know, it's just I don't know that we're really looking for anything special. Right now we're trying to maintain.
Well, bringing your son on board, that's pretty special. And, and the fact that you as a first gen farmer were successful and sustainable enough to bring your son in is huge. That's amazing.
Well, we try to implement some conservation practices. We've been adopting some of these practices over the years. We've been planting a few more cover crops. We've been doing, some buffer strips, some pollinator places, and doing some of this stuff and integrating some of that stuff to try to be a little more sustainable. So for the next generation.
Absolutely.
That's because we want to take care of the ground. We want to pass it on to the next generation and keep going. The ground is what we rely on.
Right.
So we got to take care of it any way we can.
Yeah. And, I love the sort of shift in thinking that we've seen over the past decades of from using like every inch of ground
Mm-hmm.
to really thinking about what you're doing as far as, like you said, buffer strips, taking care of the water, taking care of your soil, thinking about your tilling practices or your chemical practices. And, not only is that good for the environment, but you're taking care of the soil that your son is going to use.
Right.
And that's such a gift,
Yeah. It's just become a thing that I think a lot of farmers over the years we keep adopting more and more and more. And I think we